The village of Amato was a place where laughter was as common as the rising sun. Children's feet drummed on dusty paths as they chased each other around mud huts. Old women sat under the shade of the big iroko tree, telling stories while their hands moved quickly over calabashes and baskets. Men came home from the farms singing songs that told of strength, rain, and the joy of harvest. Amato was blessed with fertile soil and a river that never ran dry. The people believed the river was guarded by the spirit mother, and each year they offered yams, fruits, and the first fish of the season to thank her. They had a saying, "When the river is happy, the people are happy." In this village lived a man named Oluma. He was strong, respected for his skill in hunting, and feared for his temper. Oluma had 2 sons already, but he desired a 3rd child, a boy to make him prouder still. His wife, Amara, was gentle like the morning rain. She carried kindness in her smile and patience in her hands. When she became pregnant again, Oluma told everyone, "This one will be my warrior son. I can feel it." Amara only smiled. She didn't care if it was a boy or girl. She only prayed for the child to live. Months passed and the day came. Under the thatched roof of their hut, with the help of the village midwife, Amara gave birth. But when the midwife lifted the child and said, "It is a girl," Oluma's face darkened like a storm cloud. "A girl?" he asked, his voice flat. "Yes, a healthy baby girl," the midwife said with a smile. Oluma didn't smile back. He didn't touch the child. He simply turned away, muttering under his breath. That night, while Amara slept with the baby in her arms, Oluma stared at the tiny face and saw not a blessing, but a burden. His mind began to turn like the slow grinding of a millstone. In Amato, most fathers loved their daughters. But Oluma, he believed daughters were weak branches that bent under the wind. He wanted a son who could carry his spear and name into the future. For weeks, he spoke little to Amara. He brought food for his sons but ignored the baby girl. And though Amara begged him to see the child's beauty, his heart stayed cold. But the true storm had not yet begun. One evening, under the blood-orange sunset, Oluma sat outside sharpening his hunting knife. The baby was crying inside, her voice thin but stubborn. Oluma's jaw tightened. In his mind he had made a decision that would change everything, not just for the child but for the entire village of Amato. That night, when the moon was high and the crickets loud, Oluma stepped into the hut, looked at the sleeping Amara, and then at the baby wrapped in soft cloth. He picked her up. Her tiny fingers curled around his thumb. And without a word, he carried her into the forest. The forest of Amato was not a place to wander at night. Tall trees whispered secrets to one another in the wind, and the moonlight only managed to slip in thin silver ribbons between the leaves. Owls called out warnings. Somewhere far away, a hyena laughed. Oluma walked swiftly, the baby in his arms. She was awake now, her big eyes staring up at him. She didn't cry, only blinked at the strange shadows above. The deeper they went, the darker it became. Oluma's breathing grew heavy, but his heart stayed as hard as stone. When he reached the old part of the forest, where the elders said spirits liked to wander, he stopped. There was a clearing here, overgrown with tall grass and wildflowers. In the center stood a twisted tree, blackened by lightning many years ago. "This place will hide you from me, forever," Oluma muttered. He set the baby down in the grass. She kicked her legs, making soft cooing sounds, as if she thought this was some strange game. Oluma looked down at her one last time. The moonlight caught her face, and for the briefest moment something stirred in him, a flicker of guilt, a tiny ember of doubt. But then he turned his back. Without a word, without a prayer, he walked away. The baby lay in the grass, the night air cool on her skin. An owl hooted again. Somewhere in the dark, dry leaves crackled. Hours later, Amara woke. Her arms reached for the child, but they met only empty cloth. Her heart leapt to her throat. She ran outside, calling for Oluma, but his sleeping mat was empty. Fear wrapped around her like a snake. She grabbed a torch and ran through the village, waking the elders and neighbors. Soon, a small crowd followed her into the forest, their torches casting trembling light on the trees. They searched for hours. They found Oluma returning from the opposite direction. His face blank, his hands empty. "Where is my daughter?" Amara screamed. Oluma only shrugged. Perhaps the spirits took her. The elders exchanged looks. Some suspected his words, but without proof, they could not accuse him openly. The only thing they knew was that the baby was gone, and the forest had swallowed her. Days turned to weeks. Amara refused to eat. Her eyes became hollow, her voice quiet. The songs of the village seemed to fade, as if even the birds mourned the loss. But life in Amado went on. The people harvested their crops. Children played in the dust. And though whispers about Oluma's heartless acts still traveled like smoke from hut to hut, no one spoke to his face. What no one knew, what not even Oluma could have guessed, was that the baby girl's story was not over. The forest had not taken her to die. It had taken her to prepare her. For the day would come when she would return, not as the weak burden Oluma thought she was, but as something far greater. And the first sign of that day would appear sooner than anyone imagined. The night Oluma left his baby in the bush, the forest did not stay silent. From the shadows, eyes were watching. Many eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. They belonged not to wild animals, but to the guardians of the forest, an ancient sisterhood who lived deep within the sacred groves, unseen by ordinary villagers. They were women of great wisdom, wearing beads that rattled softly when they moved, their skin painted with white clay in sacred patterns. They spoke to the trees, to the rivers, and to the wind. It was said they could call rain when the land was dry and turn away harm with a single chant. The eldest among them, Mother Esh, was the first to step into the clearing where the baby lay. Her hair was white as cotton, her eyes sharp as a hawk's. She knelt beside the child, and when the baby reached up and gripped her finger, Mother Esh smiled. "This one has the mark," she whispered. The others leaned closer and saw it, a tiny birthmark shaped like a crescent moon just above the baby's heart. The women carried her away, deeper into the forest than any villager dared to go. There, in their hidden village, they raised her as one of their own. They named her Zina, which meant one who brings light. From the very beginning, Zina was different. She walked before she turned one. She could mimic the songs of birds and the calls of monkeys. And when she laughed, even the grumpy old leopard that sometimes prowled near the women's huts would pause, as if listening. Mother Esh taught her the old ways. How to read the tracks of animals, how to hear the difference between the rustle of wind and the warning of danger, how to mix herbs to heal fever. Zina learned fast. It was as if the forest itself whispered secrets into her ear. Years passed. By the time she was 12, she could climb the tallest tree in the grove without fear. She could swim across the river when it roared with floodwater. And she could speak to the forest spirits, who told her things even the elders of the sisterhood did not know. But while Zina grew in wisdom and strength, far away in Amado, Oluma grew old and bitter. His sons had grown into lazy young men who loved the taste of palm wine more than the sound of a drumbeat in the fields. The once proud hunter found himself without help in his old age. One season the rains failed. The river shrank until it was only a silver thread in the sand. The crops withered. Hunger gnawed at the bellies of the people. The elders called a meeting in the village square. They decided someone must go to the spirit mother's sacred grove and beg for rain. But no one in Amado knew the way. Not anymore. It was then, far away in the forest, that Zina felt the change. The wind was dry. The river fish were dying. The leaves whispered urgently to her at night. Mother Esh told her, "The time is coming, child, when you must step into the world beyond the trees. You have a path to walk, and it will lead you to the place where your life began." Zina didn't know what the old woman meant, but she would soon find out. Because the drought was not just a test for the village. It was the first step toward the day she would ride into Amado wearing a crown. The drought tightened its grip on the land like a fist around a dry stalk. Birdsong faded. The wind that once carried the sweet smell of yam fields now blew dust into people's eyes. Children cried at night from hunger. In the hidden village of the Guardians, the women gathered under the great silk cotton tree. Mother Esh spoke first. "The Spirit Mother has sent a message," she said, her voice low and steady. "A great thirst is spreading. If nothing is done, the rivers will vanish and the people of the land will scatter." Zina sat cross-legged before her, listening. She had felt it too. The forest had been restless for weeks. Even the old trees whispered of death. "The Spirit Mother says only one can carry her message to the people," Mother Esh continued. Her eyes turned to Zina. "Only you?" Zina's heart skipped. "Me?" she asked. "Yes. You know the forest, the sacred paths, and the language of the wind. You are the bridge between the wild and the village." "But I have never been to the outside world," Zina admitted. Mother Esh smiled faintly. "That is why you must go. You carry no greed, no malice. You will speak the truth, and the truth will be heard." That night, the Guardians gave her blessings. They painted her face with sacred white clay, placed beaded bangles on her wrists, and hung a pouch of protective herbs around her neck. The youngest of the women weaved a crown of woven reeds, not of gold, just a simple circle that marked her as a messenger of the forest. Before dawn, Zina set out. She carried a carved staff for walking and a small gourd of water. Every step away from the grove was a step into the unknown. The journey was not gentle. The sun baked the earth until it cracked. Twice she had to hide from hyenas, and once a black mamba slid across her path, its tongue flicking like a flame. On the third day, she reached the edge of the forest. In the distance, she saw a wide stretch of dry farmland and mud huts standing under a hazy sky. Her heart pounded. The village. But as she walked closer, she saw what the drought had done. Children's bellies were swollen from hunger. Old women carried baskets with only a few shriveled roots. The air felt heavy, not with heat alone but with hopelessness. Zina entered the village square. The elders and villagers turned to look at her. A tall young woman with beads and clay marks, carrying herself like someone born of a different world. An old man with a deep voice stepped forward. "Who are you, child? From where do you come?" "I am Zina, daughter of the forest," she said. "I have come with a message that can save this land." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some were curious, some were suspicious. And somewhere in the back of the gathering, an older man with hard eyes watched her closely, his jaw tightening. It was Oluma. He did not yet know who she was. But the way her eyes met his, it sent a strange shiver down his spine. The square fell into silence. Every villager's eyes were fixed on the strange young woman who stood before them. The clay on her face, the beads at her neck, the reed crown on her head, they were like nothing anyone in Amato had seen in years. Zina lifted her staff and spoke. "The Spirit Mother of the river has seen your suffering. The drought is not by chance, it is a warning. The land is thirsty because the hearts of the people have grown cold. Greed, pride, and cruelty have offended the spirits." Her voice was calm, but it carried like the beat of a drum. Some villagers nodded, others frowned. Oluma's eyes narrowed. He leaned on his walking stick, studying her face. There was something about her eyes perhaps, that unsettled him. Zina continued. "If you wish for the river to flow again, you must make peace with the forest. You must cleanse your wrongs. The Spirit Mother has sent me to guide you." A young man in the crowd scoffed. "And who are you to tell us what we have done wrong? You come from the bush like a wild thing." Zina met his gaze without flinching. "I come from the bush because the bush kept me alive when humans would have let me die." Her words struck like lightning, and a strange murmur rippled through the crowd. Amara, who had been standing quietly at the back, suddenly felt her heart leap. She pushed forward, her eyes wide, her voice trembling. "What did you say?" Zina looked at her, and for a moment, both women simply stared at each other. Oluma's grip on his walking stick tightened. His mind raced. Could it be? No, it was impossible. But Zena's words were not finished. She turned to the elders. There is a path to the Spirit Mother's grove that has been forgotten. Can lead you there. But only those with clean hearts may walk it. If one who carries great evil enters, the forest will swallow them whole. The elders exchanged worried glances. Some thought she was a liar, others feared she might be telling the truth. But in a time of dying crops and empty rivers, even the smallest hope was worth the risk. Finally, the oldest elder spoke. We will go with you. At dawn tomorrow we walk the path. The villagers began to scatter, whispering among themselves. Oluma remained where he stood. His gaze locked on Zena. The longer he looked, the more he saw. Her eyes, her jaw, the shape of her mouth. It was like looking at a ghost from 19 years ago. That night, Oluma lay awake, staring at the roof of his hut. If this young woman was who he feared she might be, then the forest had not just spared her, it had sent her back. And if the forest had sent her back, what did it want in return? The dawn broke, pale and dry. The air carried no scent of dew, only the dusty breath of the dying land. In the village square, a small group gathered, elders, strong young men, and women who could walk long distances. At the center of them stood Zena, her staff planted firmly in the earth, her eyes scanning the horizon. Oluma was among them. He had not slept, yet he refused to be left behind. Perhaps it was pride. Perhaps it was fear of what Zena might say if he stayed away. Amara stood quietly near the group, her gaze fixed on Zena with an unshakable pull, though she could not yet name why. When the group was ready, Zena led them toward the forest. The path began as a narrow trail of cracked soil, then wound into the shadows beneath tall trees. The air grew cooler. Birdsong returned in faint notes. Zena walked with the confidence of one who belonged here. At every fork, she knew the way without hesitation. But the deeper they went, the more the forest seemed to test them. First came the thorns. Tall bushes with hooks like claws tore at their clothes and skin. Zena moved through them easily, but some villagers groaned and cursed. She said nothing, only noted who pushed forward without complaint and who tried to turn back. Next came the river crossing. It was only waist deep, but the water was cold and the stones slippery. One young man fell in with a splash, and everyone laughed, until Zena told them, "Those who mock the weak will find their own steps heavy before the end." They crossed in silence after that. By midday, they reached a part of the forest so thick that the sun could barely reach them. Here Zena stopped. She turned to the group. "From this point on," she said, "the forest listens to every word you speak and feels every thought you carry. If you step forward with hatred in your heart, the ground will open to swallow you." The villagers glanced nervously at one another. Oluma's jaw tightened, but he stepped forward, unwilling to show fear. They walked for another hour. The silence of the forest grew heavier. Every crack of a twig echoed like a drumbeat. And then it happened. Without warning, the ground beneath Oluma's feet shifted. The earth sank, crumbling into a pit. Only his walking stick stopped him from sliding all the way in. Gasps erupted. Oluma's eyes were wide, not with fear of falling, but with the deeper fear that the forest had recognized him. Zena stood a few paces ahead, her gaze fixed on him. Her voice was quiet but sharp. "The forest knows you." Oluma's breathing quickened. "I don't know what you mean." But Zena did not move to help him. Instead she said, "If you wish to walk further, you must speak the truth you have hidden for many years." The group turned to look at Oluma. The pit yawned wider. His hands shook. Then, Oluma clung to the edge of the pit, sweat dripping from his brow. The forest was silent, but the silence felt alive, as if every root, leaf, and branch was waiting for his answer. Zena stood like a statue, her staff grounded in the earth, her eyes locked on him. "Speak," she said. Oluma swallowed. "I have nothing to confess," he muttered, trying to pull himself up. The earth groaned beneath him. A low rumble shook the ground, and the pit widened another inch. Gasps rose from the villagers. Even the bravest among them stepped back. Amara's voice broke through the tension, trembling but strong. "Oluma," she said, "what have you done? Tell the truth before the forest takes you." His eyes darted between her and Xena. And for the first time in years, the hunter's mask cracked. His lips trembled. His breath came in shallow bursts. I left a child here," he said at last. His voice barely above a whisper. The villagers erupted in shocked murmurs. Xena's gaze did not soften. "Whose child?" Oluma's voice cracked. "Mine. My daughter. I left her, in the grass, near the old lightning tree." Amara gasped so sharply it was like she had been stabbed. Her knees nearly buckled. You said the spirits took her," she whispered. Oluma could not meet her eyes. "I wanted a son," he said. "I thought a daughter was worthless to me. So I took her in the night. I walked into the forest and left her to die." The air grew heavier. The trees seemed to lean closer. A strong wind swirled, lifting leaves into the air. Xena stepped toward the pit. Her voice was low, but it cut through the air like a blade. "That child was me." Oluma's eyes went wide. For a heartbeat he was speechless. Then his mouth opened, but no words came. The villagers stared, horror dawning on their faces. Some stepped back from him as if he carried a sickness. Xena raised her staff high, and the wind roared. "You threw me away like broken clay, but the forest claimed me. It gave me life, wisdom, and the strength to return. And now the forest asks, should you be spared?" The pit beneath him shuddered again. His fingers began to slip. "Please," Oluma cried, his voice desperate. "Forgive me." The villagers looked to Xena. Some nodded for mercy. Others shook their heads. Xena's eyes narrowed. Her voice was almost a whisper, yet everyone heard. Mercy must be earned. She struck her staff against the ground. And the pit. Xena's staff hit the ground with a deep, echoing thud. The pit stopped widening, but the earth still trembled under Oluma's hands. The villagers held their breath, torn between fear of the forest and fear of what Xena might do. The wind howled, swirling dust into the air. The trees groaned as if an unseen weight pressed against them. From deep within the forest came the sound of rushing water, though there was no river nearby. Xena stepped closer to the pit. Her voice was calm but unyielding. "Oluma, the forest will not forget what you did. But it will listen to me. I can spare you. If you swear to live the rest of your days in service to those you once thought worthless." Oluma's voice cracked. I swear by my own blood." Xena studied him for a long moment. Then she drove her staff into the earth beside the pit. The ground steadied. Roots slithered like snakes beneath the soil, curling upward to form a bridge that lifted Oluma out. He collapsed on the ground, panting, his hands shaking. The villagers kept their distance. They looked at Xena with awe now, not suspicion. She turned to them. "The Spirit Mother is ready to bless you again, but only if you wash your hearts clean. No more greed, no more cruelty. Share your harvest. Care for the weakest among you. And remember that the smallest life can hold the greatest power." With that, she began walking deeper into the forest. The group followed until they reached a wide clearing with a crystal pool at its center. The air here was cool and sweet, and the sound of water seemed to come from everywhere at once. Xena knelt by the pool, dipped her reed crown into the water, and lifted it dripping in the sunlight. She placed it on her head. The beads on her neck rattled, and the pool began to ripple. A mist rose, curling into the sky like smoke. The villagers gasped as the clouds above thickened and darkened. Then came the first drop, cold and fat, hitting the dusty ground. Then another, and another. Within moments, rain poured down, soaking the earth, running in streams toward the thirsty fields. Children laughed and danced in it, their voices ringing like bells. Amara fell to her knees, tears mixing with the rain. Oluma stood apart, drenched, his head bowed. He did not speak. Xena removed her reed crown and set it gently on the surface of the pool, where it floated away. When she turned back toward the village, her voice carried the weight of the story's ending. This crown was not mine to keep. It belongs to those who choose kindness over pride. Remember that, and you will never fear drought again. The villagers followed her home, their hearts lighter, their bellies soon to be full again. And though Oluma lived many more years, he never forgot the day his daughter returned, not as a helpless child he had cast away, but as the crowned messenger who had the power to end his life, and chose instead to save it.